On Twitter, I think you also told me that you wanted to talk a little bit about how to get started on Android in general, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that this is something that would really interest our audience, right? Because I've received a lot of questions from people that are just starting out on Twitter, learning Android, obviously, and there's this problem here that right now developers face, and that problem is usually, how do I start? I mean, I think that, as you mentioned, the tutorial hell is a real problem, right? And the fact that we have so many resources and so many information, it's a blessing, but at the same time, it's also a curse, because you don't know how to exactly start. I mean, if you Google Android tutorial on the internet, you won't have a roadmap, and you won't have this kind of guidance that you would need in order to know what to learn, right, and how to learn it, right? These are like some very important points, and I've had friends starting out on Android, and I tried to give them the best advice I could. So I thought that we could share some of them here, and I think that the first one we have already covered, and it was about being accountable and having deadlines and goals about your learning, because without having this set from the beginning, well, you will have problems probably along the road of being consistent and actually finishing what you are starting. So apart from that, you also mentioned something really important, and that is the actual official code lab that usually Google offers for every kind of concept or library that they release. And I think that before trying to Google a tutorial right about Android, or before trying to buy a course, even though obviously that will not make my sales go any higher, but I think that the best thing is to start with official code labs. This is what I actually advise everyone, because they provide you the actual hands-on experience that you want to have in the beginning. And recently, Android also released some official tutorials that are really similar to the Code Lab experience, right? And I think that these are the first things that you want to touch upon. They should be the first contact with Android that you should have as a developer. I wish I had them much better organized at the time I started, because they were pretty crazy. They didn't have the same structure and consistency as they have now. So I think that this is a great starting point. So what I would usually do, as you said, I would try to work on or this is what I actually do right now. Some of the times when I learn something new, I go through a code lab, I try to apply on their code, and I also try to apply it on my projects, or I try to create a new project from scratch. Because when you actually learn something, it makes sense when you follow a tutorial, which is step by step. But at the end of the day, if you try to actually go through that process from the beginning without looking at the code lab, this will really test your skills, and this will really test the way that you have actually absorbed that information, right? It will really test your capability of remembering how things should be done and how they work, right? And obviously you shouldn't remember anything on top of your mind, but the point is that you should try to always do things on your own afterwards on projects, because that's how you actually gain the practical experience, right? So again, this is something that I would start off with. You can buy courses later, and you can buy anything else later, but the immediate contact point with Android should be with official documents, labs, whatever, because they will give you that kind of consistency that some of the times the courses won't, and they will give you that starting point. And something that I learned the hard way is that even though you're starting out as a programmer right now, be it on Android, whatever stack you're using, and this is generally wide available, right? You should learn to use a versioning system like Git, for example. Why I'm saying this, I'm not saying that you should learn Git for your job, right? Because even though I think that's important for a job as well, but it's not really essential for your first job. But I think that you should learn it for yourself and for your mental health, because when you are in the first steps, right, you will probably get things wrong very often. very often. And instead of just going undoing everything, Control Z everything, and trying to go back to the previous state of the code, what really helped me in the beginning was using Git. I would try to have branches and commits for every change, and having the ability to go back to the previous version that I knew that was working did wonders. And believe me, if you show a Git to somebody that has struggled with this for some while, that person will probably believe that you're showing him the almighty power of programming and coding. It's something that will help you get past the mistakes that you do, because it's very easy to mess up the code in the first stages. I mess up the code as we are speaking right now, even though I have a few years of experience. So it's something that will really save you a lot of frustration, right? You get something working properly, you should save that as a commit or a branch, whatever, and then you can start experimenting. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to work on those practical projects that we have spoken about. So again, for your sanity, I would advise you to learn Git. Don't go into in-depth details, whatever, branching strategies. No, just try to understand how it works, and how this will save you a lot of time and nerves and a lot of rage along the way that you are starting out right now. So yeah, this is something that I would advise, and I would continue our discussion in terms of tips with a more unpopular opinion. I would say that if you are in your early beginnings, I would say that libraries on Android, specifically the Jetpack libraries, but also other libraries that are very common and popular, all of these libraries, they are your friend, and you should make them your friend really soon. And I know that many experienced or senior devs will disagree with me right now, because they will say that libraries are evil and they kind of bring fragility to your code, and I agree with all of that. But in your early beginnings, I think that libraries will help you abstract those nasty implementation details that others have taken care of, so you can focus on creating apps and having them shipped and having them built. And they actually create you that sensation that you can build an app really fast and that you are good at what you do. Obviously, along the road, you have to understand why you are using them. And this is a very important topic. As I said, I've held interviews at my company dozens of times for new members. And something that I've seen and that really bugged me really bad was that people were using libraries and they already had some experience, right? So I'm not really talking about people that are starting out, but people just started maybe using them in the beginning, and then they forgot about understanding why they should use them. So when I would ask somebody why do they use Dagger in their projects, they would say, well, because it's recommended by Android, right? So I thought I would give it a try. And I would always say, but why? I mean, you need to understand why you're adding a library to your project. What are the benefits? What are the costs? And why are you actually using it? What's that library doing for you? This is something that I would advise you to do, maybe not in the very early steps, because you might melt your brain. You don't want to start with everything from the beginning, but you need to take care of this really, really soon. And heck, after all, you can, after that, you can actually create your own implementation, just like YZS was doing. So you can go into more in depth, and you can have discussions whether libraries are bringing fragility to your code, which I can agree. Again, this is contextual, and it can depend on some projects. It can be more effective or maybe less effective for other projects. It can make sense for some of them. It can make less sense for others. But until then, it's really important to make libraries your friend, use them so you can ship really fast, because at the end of the day, as a junior, this is what will help you. This is what will actually get you a job, right? Knowing to work with libraries, because companies want that, and having the ability of building apps and shipping them. And again, after you do that, make sure that you understand why you use them, right? And what they do behind the scenes. These are essential things. If you overlook them and you can just go along the path of not understanding what you are using and why you are using, this is going to be very bad on long term, and that's not something that you should do. But in the beginning, they should be your friend. And yeah, I guess that this is something that I really want to stress. No, even though even if you hear senior developers telling you that, hey, you shouldn't use RxJava because I don't know, you couple your project with other dependencies, or you shouldn't use a navigation component, or I don't know, whatever other library. I always try to respond to that this kind of tactic makes sense in their context because they have the experience, they understand what those libraries actually do, how they work behind the scenes, and they can replace them maybe with some more light efficient libraries. But for beginners, this kind of libraries really help you out, and they can give you the speed that you need, right, to deliver projects. And that's what matters at the end of the day for a company, at least when you're a junior.
Yeah, I think it depends on what kind of libraries. First of all,
Yeah.
as a beginner, I would use all the popular libraries because
Yeah.
it's just too difficult to write. Even writing something like a view model yourself, I would use Jetpack view model as a beginner, and I also use it right now because it's actually not as maybe writing a view model is not that difficult without Jetpack, but writing a lifecycle aware observable
Yeah.
state holder, that's definitely difficult. So I think for beginners, there's no point in trying to come up with something like this yourself. But there are also libraries that I think even real good professional developers don't have problems with, like Retrofit. I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think there are many people who would say that Retrofit should be written by yourself. Those are really popular libraries. But I know that many people are not fans of Jetpack libraries. Jetpack navigation is not very popular. Jetpack view model is also not very popular. So those are the libraries that many of these more experienced developers try to write by themselves. But again, for beginner, that doesn't really make much sense, I think.